back to the booth. Patrick will have a trivia question for you guys for the full year of premium. We'll announce the winner at the conclusion. And then we'll do our winners interview in the sideboard with Nick Miller. And then we'll take a little break, and then brainstorms, fetch lands, and Gristlebrand's.
A lot of shuffling of the deck.
Yes. Legacy will be upon us soon enough, as we do have players filing in here for our Legacy Open. Should be a blast today.
So in this matchup, Bernardo's creatures are basically nonsense. None of them are particularly good.
Sure.
Grey Merchant gives them some range, but that's not what the games are about. Bernardo's side is all about getting Underworld connections online and then trading 1-for-1. So Underworld connections and Thoughtseize are his most powerful tools game long, alongside Mutavault. And then in the post-board games, he gets to do more of the same with Erebos and Duress.
It's all about timely discard, as he's going to lead off with a Thoughtseize. So let's see what David Vogt is working with here. There's a Rev, Dissolve, Faraway, Jace, and a couple of lands.
Pretty powerful hand for David.
Pretty tough hand to Thoughtseize, honestly.
Yeah, having a counterspell here as protection against Underworld connections is very good for David, though Bernardo can choose to take it. But in that case, he gets to have a Revelations left in his hand, which is one of his most powerful tools in the matchup.
We can't ignore Jace either, as that card's quite good too.
Oh, yeah.
Some real stuff going on here. It's also nice too. You know, it's been a little while since we've seen Far and Away really, you know, put itself into the format. Of course, this was one of the best cards at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze, and now it's kind of rearing its ugly head again, which is, I feel, long overdue.
Certainly when the metagame is going into Palakranos and Reaper of the Wilds type of threats, Far Away is one of the best removal spells in the format.
Yeah. You see Bernardo really taking his time on what to take with this Thoughtseize. He's got a Connections in his hand, Hero's Downfall, Ultimate Price, Deso Demon, and a couple of lands.
He has an excellent hand here, but David's hand is also very high quality.
Yeah.
I feel like I like taking Dissolve, getting an opening here for your Underworld connections, and taking the game from there.
Gonna go Far and Away. Vo will draw a card. Looks like another Temple. And it is. So Temple of Enlightenment number 2. Leave that card, we believe. On top, the answer is, looks like yes. And it is. So Bernardo's going to take a draw here. There's a Swamp. You see the Mutavault in his hand as well. Maybe he has a Pack Rat in his hand, maybe. We'll see. Taking Far and Away there. Seems like he may have that type of card in his hand.
He's definitely trying to create an opening for something, and if he took Far Away instead of something else, it means almost certainly a creature, but still nothing on Bernardo's side.
Vo immediately pulls an island forward to his hand, so he has no intentions of leaving the Dissolve Shield down. Bernardo will take a draw. Desecration Demon. There's a Mutavault. Just going to pass the turn back. Of course, the long game heavily favors Esper, certainly in game 1.
Yeah, and this is a really tough spot for Bernardo to be in because he has to fight through this Dissolve and this Jace and still beat Revelations. There's a lot of things going on right now for him that are quite poor. Another issue is game 1, Bernardo has so many bad draws. He just has various removal spells that don't help him at all, whereas David's draws are almost all productive.
Bernardo just another land and passes the turn back as David's going to play an untapped Hallowed Fountain.
I don't think David has anything that I would classify as a dead draw game 1, and
yeah.
Bernardo has plenty.
There's Nykthos. Bernardo going to play Swamp. Attack with Mutavault. A much slower, grindier game, but again, I feel like this heavily favors the Esper control player. Here's a baby Revelation. Undo the work Mutavault did and draw 2 cards. I'll take a draw. Another Revelation here.
That second Revelation is a really big draw.
Yeah. David is only 1 black mana right now, but we'll get to the point where he can actually do something along the lines of Hero's Downfall. You're attacking Mutavault and then still have Dissolve up, which is a great turn.
I mean, he's reaching the point where he's going to be able to play Jace with Dissolve back up. He's starting to really get to advance his board here.
Bernardo serves in with Mutavault yet again. See if Vo maybe wants to block Mutavault or not. He says, no, I'm okay. Just take 2. Use my life total as a resource. No big deal.
And this is the problem that I was talking about game 1. Look at Bernardo's hand. It's, I believe, 3 removal spells, 2 Hero's Downfalls, and an Ultimate Price. The Hero's Downfalls aren't they aren't 100% dead, you know, but they are not efficient.
Desecration Demon placed onto the stack.
David with a lot of tools right now, trying to figure out how he wants to answer this. With a third Revelation in hand, I sort of like casting the second Revelations here. Feels like a good spot, as you have both Hero's Downfall and Detention Sphere to clean up the Desecration Demon after the fact. And that is what David is going to do.
All right, time to rev for 3. So 2 smaller revs, but again, he has Elixir in his deck, so these small revs can work to bigger revs into the biggest revs and put it all back in his deck.
Yep.
There's an Elspeth as well.
He also has another rev in hand, so it's got a lot of, again, a lot of tools to play with, to say the very least.
And there's D-Sphere he brings forward. Gonna play Temple. Put that card to the bottom. See him organizing the mana. Looks like we're gonna see Detention Sphere get cast here while being able to leave open Dissolve, as we have seen from Vo.
And this is why I did not like the initial Thoughtseize in this game. Bernardo didn't really carve a path, and if the game is going to go on if you're playing the pace of the game in such a way that's going to go on for a really long time, then I feel like you almost certainly can't afford to just take a random removal spell over something like Revelations or Dissolve.
I agree, and the problem here is, as this game has progressed, as you mentioned, that Dissolve hasn't gone anywhere. It's going to counter something eventually, where I think you could have avoided that situation altogether. Because, he has to play so cautiously around Dissolve when he had the opportunity to take it. Yes, there are other Dissolves that Vo could have drawn to, but you can't do anything about those.
Right.
Looks like we might see Jace get deployed here. Don't love the Jace line. We'll see how he wants to use it, but, especially with Mutavault out there, and you have to assume that if your opponent's not playing anything, they probably got Hero's Downfall stranded.
Well, David doesn't have a land drop to make here. He may be happy to trade this Jace and Hero's Downfall. If he gets a land out of this is pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if his intentions are just to minus this right away, I'm okay with this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's just looking to hit land drops, so.
Well, he found one.
Yeah, I'm sure David is happy with this exchange.
Yeah. Hero's Downfall and Temple of Silence placed together. Supreme Verdict on its own, so David is going to scoop up the 2-card pile very quickly.
Yeah, I think that David almost certainly would have just taken Temple by itself.
Yeah,
so
I agree. 5, 6, 7, a couple cards here in Vo's hand. Looks like he may have to discard 1. I think maybe the easy discard is probably Verdict. Could also be Ratchet Bomb. Put the top card to the bottom.
He has a lot of redundant tools, so.
Yeah. And it looks like he's consulting his hand, and now he's good to go. Could also discard Ratchet Bomb, I suppose. As you mentioned, just a lot of redundant tools.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to tap the mana and put the Dissolve Shield down.
No, I feel like David's committed to a line where he's not giving up on Dissolve.
Yeah.
And he's under so little pressure that this is also something he can afford to do.
Yeah, it looks like he is going to discard Verdict, yeah. All right, so that'll be the turn. Passing it back.
I don't mind the Verdict discard, as I think the biggest thing for David is mana efficiency. Again, he's committed to leaving up this Dissolve Shield and trying to do other stuff, so.
Yeah.
Supreme Verdict, one of the more expensive cards in his hand, and he also has another copy in hand, so. And again, Bernardo with no creatures in play, too, so.
Pretty easy one to put in the old bin, as they say. See Bernardo separating his mana here. Desecration Demon going to be put into play. Sure Vo doesn't mind that at all. He's got plenty of removal in his hand, as he brings Elspeth to the forefront. Here comes Mutavault. I think you can safely Hero's Downfall that. Now that your opponent is underneath mana and has already played their land for the turn, You don't have any fear of underworld connections coming in?
I think that yeah, David's just going to Hero's Downfall the Demon here. He's creating an opening for Elspeth here, so eventually this Mutavault's just not going to matter very much.
Sure.
I think I like deploying Ratchet Bomb this turn.
Deploying Bomb and then having a 6 mana up?
Yeah, I think I like that. The alternative is setting up a Revelations, but he has so many cards in hand already that he's likely to discard.
He just passes back.
I mean, David's such a commanding position that I think he doesn't have to be incredibly stingy with this Verdict. He can fire it off here. But
yeah, I agree. I think in this matchup, especially Verdict, oftentimes just trades 1 for 1. It's not going to pick up anything else. So I definitely agree with you on that. He's going to dissolve this. A little surprised to see dissolve that Life Pain Zombie.
Well, I think at this stage of the game, David's just trying to trade card for card just to set up this Revelation.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's true. Like, in a situation where you have a bunch of removal in your hand and Life Pain Zombie, like, and your dissolves want to counter certain things, given that you're so far ahead in the game, I wouldn't want to dissolve just a 3-1 that I don't really care about, like, especially when I have Verdict.
Yeah, it's particularly strange to fight over Lifebane Zombie and then not do anything about Underworld Connections.
Yeah.
Although I guess the coast is clear for Elspeth with Dissolve backup, which is a pretty powerful line as well.
It looks like the line he's going to take. Going to put Elspeth Sun's Champion into play.
I would imagine at this point that David's willing to fight over Hero's Downfall and just try to go all the way with Elspeth.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it feels like. See, this old Joker's going to play. Bernardo's going to draw a card. I just don't like the fact that Bernardo gets to try to get back into this game with Underworld Connections now, when he was so far out of it.
Yeah.
All right, here's running Gray Merchants. Not saying those are going to win the game, but it actually turns it into a game of Magic now.
It is a little hairy, certainly.
Yeah.
Although keep in mind, David does have this Revelation as backup in his hand, but. I think it was one of those things where the Lifebane Zombie came out. David said, okay, well, I just want to start trading card for this Revelations. Then Underworld Connections came down and he said, well, I don't really want to give up this last Dissolve. And now we're in this spot where Underworld Connections is online and things are getting a little dicey.
Yeah.
But David's still with a lot of action here. Still has Dissolve. Still has a big Rev, still has Elspeth in play. And we'll see how Bernardo wants to proceed from here. Clearly concerned about the potential for a dissolve here. And not sure if it's more important for him to land this Gray Merchant or to land this removal spell on Elspeth.
Well, he's going to try to start by landing the Gray Merchant.
I feel at this point, yeah, David's not going to fight over this, which I like. He seems committed to trying to win the game with Elspeth. And now this Hero's Downfall is certainly worthy of a dissolve.
Yep, that gets countered. David at 9, but again, as you mentioned, there's a Revelation in grip, so his life total is perfectly fine at this point. Now he gets to use Elspeth to take over the game.
It does have the feeling of this got a little bit closer than maybe it should have.
Yeah, that's just my concern. Just the sequencing and given that he made it so far into this game, so deep into this game. There's the Devourer Flesh take care of the Gray Merchant without Bernardo actually doing anything of relevance. I think he is in the position where he can just pick and choose what he wants to do with counterspells.
Yeah.
And Lifebane Zombie isn't something that I really care to use a counterspell on in this particular matchup. That's my argument. That's all.
I'm with you. I actually would not have mind dissolving the Lifebane Zombie if the plan was also to dissolve whatever came after it.
Sure.
To try to set up a better Revelation. Trade resources and then have a big Rev.
Yeah, and then Rev for 6 or 7.
Yeah. What I do not like is fighting over one but not the other.
Either way, soldier tokens are in play. Dissolve took care of the hero's downfall. And Bernardo now has to have basically perfect underworld connections activations to get himself into this game, as he's facing a wall of mana there from David.
And T-2 turns for a lethal Elspeth ultimate as well.
Yep. I suppose T-2 turns until a lethal Sphinx's Revelation as well.
Yeah.
You could argue that.
Although Bernardo has found Bioplate. And
yeah.
if David gets a little too aggressive with generating his Elspeth emblem, that could be very good for him as well.
You see David's hand right now. He's got the downfall, got the verdict, the rev, and the copy of Ratchet Bomb there. See Bernardo trying to figure out what he's supposed to do on his side of things.
Yeah, Bernardo bowling over. Although I don't really know what line he has other than just deploying this Grey Merchant.
Yeah.
I mean, he may want to try to set up getting more permanents into play and trying to have one big Grey Merchant here, but that feels like you're being really optimistic about your draw steps.
See his hand right now, Grey Merchant, Bioplate, and the ultimate price. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to set up too. You know, he can't do anything. He can't do much with Mutavaults. He can cast Grey Merchant, gain 4, drain 4. You know, he's going to put Vote down to 5. He's going to move to 25.
Well, this may be worth the hero's downfall in response.
Yeah, with it on the stack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In response to the trigger.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you know, the other nice thing about that is David is, again, running each player out of resources and then setting up an enormous revelation with all of his mana.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically perfect.
Yeah.
I think that might be the play that we see.
I really like when Revelations players, as a rule, get pretty aggressive trading 1-for-1 and with a Revelation in hand.
Yeah, and then reload.
Yeah, because you end up discarding a lot of the time, so you just sit and say go and say go and say go.
Hey, you can just start firing things off. I think when I see that, I think of Jerry T. When he played Rev decks like blue, white, red. Just fire off a removal spell here, there, rev for 8. Set out to discard, and I'll get you eventually. Yeah, so that the Grey Merchant's effect on the stack, devotion count is 2. As Grey Merchant isn't there anymore, just underworld connections, so a switch of 2 life. So now, Vo will untap, he'll take a draw, another copy of Elspeth. Not so bad.
Yeah, the backup Elspeth is actually really nice here in the event that David gets a little aggressive with his emblem next turn.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives him the luxury of being able to do that,
Yep.
you know?
Here's an attack here for 6. Bernardo's going to go down to 17. Elspeth's going to go up, so 3 more soldier tokens put into play.
And I imagine David's just going to pass it back.
Yeah, I don't think there's much for him to do now besides, reload with Rev. Bernardo's going to draw a card. Pack Rat, not at its best right now.
A little late to the party.
Go down to 16 from connections. Take a draw. There's a Temple of Deceit. Gonna put that into play, a little scry time.
Elspeth, in my mind, the best finisher for control decks in the format. Not very good in the mirror match, which is why you still see Aetherlings hanging out in people's decks, but really excellent everywhere else.
Yeah, better against every other deck. That's the trick. But I think you actually do need an Aetherling to be able to beat the other decks.
Yeah.
Myself, personally, I'm not comfortable with the Cuneo approach of just trying to deck you or whatever he's trying to do with Elixir.
I would be really worried about playing that strategy in a 10-round tournament.
Yeah.
I feel getting draws, mental fatigue, all that's factors that add up.
Yeah. Not saying it can't be done, of course. A player like William Huey Jensen has shown that it can be. But it is difficult for your average player. So Bernardo looks like he's going to play Bioblight here to kill all the
I believe he's trying to open up a window here for
Mutables?
Mutables to start trying to contain Elspeth.
One thing, yeah, that's going to take care of all that stuff. I was thinking maybe one thing David could do is use a removal spell on the one that Bioblade is targeting. Now Mutavaults are going to get opened up. Looks like they might go after Elspeth here.
The issue with this line is just the Elspeth will cover these two Mutavaults going forward. Yeah. This is a temporary reprieve, but it's not a long-term solution to the problem that Bernardo's in.
And obviously the problem with going upstairs, putting him down to 3, is of course Revelation will undo all of that work. So there are a lot of problems, period.
Bernardo may not be playing around Revelation at this point, which is reasonable. You know, David's already cast some of them,
Yeah.
but...
It looks like Bernardo did just go upstairs, down to 3, yeah. So here's Pack Rat. There's Revelation. Looks like it's going to be for 6. Yep. So Vo's going to go up to 9, but more importantly, he's going to draw 6 new cards. 7 after he takes his draw step. See a Jason and the Revelation to dissolve among them, so a lot of hits there.
Yeah, dissolve is critical.
Vo will draw the card for his turn. It's a Swamp. I think there's D-Sphere hiding out in there as well. Also Supreme Verdict, where he could trade 1-for-1 with the Rat, if he so chooses. That's what he's going to do. So there's the trade. Elspeth's going to go up to 8. 3 soldier tokens. Still plenty to do this turn.
Yeah, I still feel like if I'm in David's spot, the biggest thing is just holding up dissolve.
Yep.
I'd be pretty loath to do. I mean, even playing Jace on this board looks pretty good, but I would still just want to say err on the side of caution.
Yeah, I mean, you can deploy Ratchet Bomb now if you want, but as long as you have dissolve up, you know, you're basically covering it so that you don't lose to something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I am with you. I'm a big fan of that. And there is Ratchet Bomb. This might prevent David from discarding, and it does. So now he'll just pass the turn back to Bernardo, who will take a draw. Looks like it's a Devour Flesh. He'll take 1, go down to 16 via connections. Draws a Desecration Demon. So not a ton that Bernardo can do this particular turn. He's got Deso Demon. That's really about it. He's got Mutavaults that he can attack with.
Yeah, he needs to try to keep Elspeth off of going big.
I like a double block on one, a single block on the other.
Yeah, that's what I like too. I was about to say the exact same thing.
Yeah, just make him have it.
Yeah, and if Bernardo wants to replay this turn next turn, be my guest.
Yeah. And this is also acceptable here.
Sure.
Just, you know, it beats a singular removal spell and takes care of a Mutavault, and your Elspeth goes down to 6. So that's also obviously an acceptable turn. Because, you know, your Elspeth's not being taken off the table. There's Desecration Demon. See if he wants to dissolve this or not. Taking a look at the cards and saying he's got a Rev over there. He's got Answer Deso on the board, too.
Yeah.
With Elspeth, so. Again,
It means maybe Bioblight, something that you then have to fight over if Desecration Demon gets into play, but...
Yeah, I mean, he's going to dissolve this. I feel like this is another situation where he can just pick his spots better with dissolve.
Yeah, to me, the concern is Grey Merchant at this point, and David's running out of protection for that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a D-Sphere, so that can take care of connections if he wants to cast that this turn. He's going to start by attacking for 1, put Bernardo down to 14. You know, when you have a finite number of counterspells in your deck, you know, I'm not a huge fan of using them aggressively, I guess, is the best term to use, and I feel like that's what he's doing right now with how he's countering spells.
Certainly, it's very aggressive given how far ahead he is in the game. It'd be one thing if he had to be taking calculated risks, but he is fairly ahead at this stage.
And he can even deploy Jace this turn if he wants, and there's so many different things he can do. There is Jace. He's going to take it down. So there is an Azorius Charm, a Godless Shrine, and an Obsidat. Obsidat will be a nice way to close this game out.
Another nice piece of insurance here, as Bernardo can't really, he needs Hero's Downfall, and that's already taxed because of the Elspeth that he needs to kill.
Yeah.
The rest of his removal, Bile-Blight doesn't kill, Ultimate Price doesn't kill it, and David has plenty of protection against Devour Flesh.
Looks like he might take the 2 cards as opposed to the 1. Not quite sure. Azorius Charm and land versus Obsidat. Yep, he's going to take the 2 cards. Obsidat's going to go to the bottom.
David's still with a totally stocked hand here.
Yeah.
Falls 7.
Gonna play Godless Shrine on tap and pass the turn back. Bernardo going to draw. He finds a swamp. Doesn't have connections, obviously, because that's a tension sphere. So he's only going to see 1 card a turn as opposed to 2, like we saw previously.
And Bernardo just says go with a glut of removal in hand.
Yep. This is what you talked about, too, which is,
yeah.
You know, this is likely to happen in game 1.
It gets better for Bernardo post-board, like we've mentioned, but game 1, this is the big problem.
You know, with the way the mono black decks have evolved, you know, when they first started, Whip of Erebos was a tool that they really used to great effect to be able to beat Esper and blue-eye control decks because they could just recycle Gray Merchants and 6-point hits from Desecration Demons. But they don't have that tool anymore, and part of the reason is because it wasn't great in the mirror.
Yeah.
But this was a place where it was great. And a lot of the times, you know, for the brief time that I actually played Esper, you know, you had to play a card like Pithing Needle to take care of Whip.
See an Elspeth emblem here. Yeah, I always felt like Whip was very good against the decks at the polar ends of the metagame.
Yeah.
Against aggressive decks, I certainly lost to Whip just with Desecration Demon in play.
Yeah.
That beat me plenty of times.
Yep.
And then the same thing you're describing is true of Esper and Blue-Eye Control and similar decks where the activated power on Whip is very powerful. But in the mirror match, I feel against decks like Green-Red Monsters, it's just not very effective. It's gotten pushed out.
So Ultimate Price and Devour Flesh are going to take care of some tokens here, as David was trying to attack for lethal. So the attack's going to be for 4, and Mutavault's going to be actually flying.
Yeah, that Mutavault cannot block.
Yeah, that Mutavault's not going to get to block anything, so we will fix that, as it cannot block at all. But it's going to be an attack here for 4, 5, 6, 7. Attack here for 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. So yeah, Bernardo's Mutavault can't block at all. Oftentimes when you think just the soldier tokens have flying, but that's not the case.
It's everyone.
So the attacker for 10 is going to knock Bernardo down to 10, or excuse me, going to knock him down to 4. And David looks like he's going to play a Watery Grave tapped. And the follow-up will probably just be Elspeth, make 3 more tokens.
Sure.
And lock this game out. So Bernardo looks like he's going to get 1 more draw step, as Bile-Blight doesn't even cover it now because Mutavault's a 4/4 flyer. And he draws. There's 5 mana, I guess. Not quite sure what's happening there, but Bernardo will take a draw. Underworld Connections. It gives him a chance at a redraw, of course, but I don't think a redraw exists in this particular situation.
Yep.
There's Connections. Draw a card, go down to 3. Yep, and concede the game. So David Vo is going to win game number 1 here in the finals in Atlanta. Up a game over Mono Black Devotion, as we're going to bring it back to the booth here for you guys. It is time to ask that 12-month premium question. Patrick, I'm sure you've got a doozy.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
So for 12 months premium, again, tweet at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. One correct responder will be chosen at random for a full year of Star City Games Premium. And Bernardo Fonseca has one kind of oddball value land in his Mono Black Devotion deck. Name that land.
All right. If you can name that land, again, hashtag your answer with the hashtag of SCG Premium on Twitter. Make sure you're following SCG Live. And we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our finals match, in which David Vo is currently up a game with ESPER Control, playing against Bernardo Fonseca, playing Mono Black Devotion. We're going to go to the sideboards. I've got Bernardo's in front of me, so I'll take a look at 1 Pithy Needle, a Vile Blight, a Devour Flesh, 2 Doom Blades, 2 Drowned in Sorrows, 2 Erebos, God of the Dead, 3 Dark Betrayals, and 3 copies of Duress. Obviously love Duress here. Like the Needle quite a bit. Like the 2 copies of Erebos. Don't really care for too much else.
Yep, just more discard, more card drawing, and Pithy Needle is a way to answer some of David's troubling planeswalkers.
Yeah, get Devour Flesh, Bile Blight, and Ultimate Price out of your deck, my friend.
Well, I'm not so sure about Devour Flesh just yet. If you look over at David's side of the sideboard, he has 3 copies of Blood Baron of Viscopa. This may cause Bernardo to have to keep it kind of honest here and leave in at least some copies of Devour Flesh. He has a Ratchet Braum, a Supreme Verdict, a Dispel, 2 Renounce the Guilds, 2 Negates, 4 Thought Seizes, and a Pithy Needle. I like Pithy Needle fight over Underworld Connections and Erebos. I like the 4 Thought Seizes coming in. I like the 2 copies of Negate and the Blood Barons as well. So David with a lot of options to bring in here.
See both players taking up the sideboard. I think things only get better for David after sideboard.
Well, Bernardo gets to cut the bottom 10% of his deck out, which is really valuable in this matchup. That's the biggest deal. I think David's got a lot of power, but the cards that he's taking out are actually functional cards because he has nothing dead in his main deck. Bernardo is taking out cards that do very close to nothing or actually nothing and bringing in real cards.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I would say we could see Blood Baron steal a game, but as you mentioned, Devour Fleshes are probably going to stay in. But I think that's also favorable for David, the fact that Devour Flesh will stay in, because it's this card that only comes up in a certain situation.
Yeah.
So it can be a dead draw for a large part of the game.
Your 3 Blood Barons against their 3 Devour Fleshes, let's say, is a pretty big win for David, I feel like.
Yes.
Because Bernardo is much more sensitive to drawing dead cards, because if he's not applying sufficient pressure, whether that pressure means actually attacking or by drawing a lot of cards with Underworld Connections or Erebos, David is just getting to the spot where he can cast Sphinx's Revelation. So every dead card in Bernardo's hand is a disaster.
Got our players filing in for the Legacy Open here. Looks like we're going to have a 9-rounder, my friend.
Yeah, I think around 230 is the number we need to hit for 9 rounds.
Yeah, I think we're pretty easily there today. Don't think it'll be a 10-rounder, as our Legacy Opens rarely are, but I think we're safe for 9 rounds of fun.
It's tough because I don't have a great sense of scale when it comes to looking in the rooms, because the tournament halls are all different sizes, and
sure,
I'm really bad at guessing the size. But 250, 300, 350 would be my rough guess.
2,000 people actually. That's how many are in here. I'm not good at it either.
I think that my guess is closer to correct than yours.
Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, sure.
That's fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Also, happy birthday, Cedric.
Oh, gee, thank you so much.
For those of you unaware, today I believe is your 28th birthday.
I am officially old, but I've been officially old for a couple of years. You turn old when you turn 25.
That's the threshold?
That's my opinion on the threshold. So as a result, I am older now.
I think whenever you qualify for the discount at Denny's is when you're officially old.
Am I
That's
there?
like the government definition.
Am I there?
I think you got another 30 some odd years.
If I ask nice, do you think I'll get the discount today?
Probably not. They're more likely to kick you out of the Denny's than to give you the senior discount.
I'm a paying customer. That's not nice at all. I just want my French toast slam, my cheap coffee. That I would give to you.
Thank you.
Because coffee is disgusting, but that's what friends are for. If you were to go to Denny's, what would you order at Denny's?
Bacon and eggs scrambled, the same thing I order at any other diner.
Pathetic.
Maybe a moons over my hammy if I was feeling
That's
especially exotic.
That's a great order. I have a lot of friends who enjoy the moons. It's no FTS, but a few things are.
What is, really?
Yeah.
Game 2 about to get started here. Bernardo with a much more structurally sound deck.
Are we done with the Denny's talk? I could go on. Denny's is great. I've just been told I'm out of my mind about the greatness of Denny's.
It has a role.
It has a role.
It has a role.
I wouldn't be caught dead there with the sun up.
The mixture of hours and price means that it has a role.
Oh, boy. Looks like Bernardo is happy with his hand. David looks like he's taking a mulligan.
It's sort of like the pithing needle, you know? You can't play 4 in your deck, but it does cover a lot of bases.
Yeah, that's true.
It's nice to have one.
It has a role.
Yeah, it has a role.
It has a price and a function. All right, David, let's take a look. And he's happy. Tempo of Deceit to start things off here in game number 2 of the finals. David will take a draw step. He's got a Tempo of Silence. You see your Hero's Downfall over there. Dissolve as well. Supreme Verdict hanging out too. Top card looks like it's going to go to the bottom. And there's a Hero's Downfall. And here's a Thoughtseize. So let's see exactly what David's got. Hallowed Fountain, Swamp, Hero's Downfall, Dissolve, Supreme Verdict, and a Devour Flesh.
A pretty rough hand, as you know, David has nothing proactive to do, is having problems with colored mana. Bernardo also has Underworld Connections in hand. Unclear if he has a 3rd land here.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the kind of game that Connections can run away with, or at least pull you ahead with. It is unclear if he has 3rd land, as you mentioned, because there is a Mutavault there for sure. Not sure about the rest, though.
It looks like a lot of 3-mana creatures and removal spells. And Supreme Verdict, the card that Bernardo is going to take.
Interesting decision.
Yeah, I still think that I take Dissolve there because I believe that, you know, I still feel like that's the highest impact card here.
I agree. I'm going to pay 2 here, old David. I guess I did.
Bernardo
forgot to play a land. Oh, my. I was just thinking the same thing as you. Yeah. He forgot to play land after his Thoughtseize. Now David actually takes the initiative back, plays a Swamp Pass to the turn. Bernardo takes a draw. Another copy of Thoughtseize, has a Mutavault too. So there's a Thoughtseize.
So still can't deploy his Underworld Connections.
Yeah.
So that is a bit of a reprieve here for David.
Here's the grip. You see a Jace, a Revelation, a Devour Flesh, a Dissolve, and a Hero's Downfall. Decisions to be made here for Fonseca. Critical error, though.
It's actually not going to come back to really haunt him here, but it could have easily been really bad.
Don't think he's trying to hook him, that's for sure.
No.
There goes Jace, probably the best card in the hand.
Yeah, I think that, you know, Bernardo is pretty happy here to, you know, allow David to choke on reactive cards as long as David has no source of card advantage.
Mutavault the land here for David, pass the turn back. Bernardo draws a Swamp. Now you can deploy Connections. Or you can play the old Lifebane Zombie. And he is going to go with the creature, see nothing. I wouldn't be surprised to see David cast Devour Flesh this turn. As if that snags the Mutavault, that feels like all sorts of win to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine either way.
Yeah. Foe will take a draw. There's another copy of Revelation. Just passes the turn back. Can't cast it. Only got 1 blue. Bernardo draws a card. It's a copy of Duress. Little surprised to see him not trying to deploy Underworld Connections, given the situation. Opponent doesn't have double blue.
Yeah. And there's a big risk here. Like, let's say that he takes Dissolve here in an attempt to clear the path. If David draws a 2nd blue mana, then he has a red for 2, and the ball starts to roll here.
Gonna take Revelation as opposed to Dissolve. See if Bernardo's gonna maybe fire Mutavault here. Would be obviously a little bit dangerous. There's a Hero's Downfall on the other side of the table. But he's coming in, I think. I think if you're David, you can't fire off Hero's Downfall fast enough. Personally.
Yeah.
Especially when your opponent's not hitting land drops.
Not casting anything else either.
Yeah, I can't. I couldn't pass up on this if I was Vo.
And just the way the game's playing out, this Mutavault is a long-term threat as well.
Yeah. That's not something I could pass up on. And Vo says, all right, I'm going to take care of that. Vo will draw a card. It's an island. Lets him have the ability to rev for 2 next turn.
Yeah, now he has access.
Dissolve,
yeah, now he has Dissolve for Underworld Connections.
Yeah, I just really don't like the way that Bernardo has played this game. He's just going to cast Duress here. You know, when you're playing in the matchup like this and you have the opportunity to resolve Underworld Connections, it's far too important.
I think this is a good spot to dissolve. Yeah,
I agree.
I really like this because if David is able to find a 6 land that comes into play untapped, it's a big shift. He gets to rev for 3, and then the game's on.
Bernardo's just going to pass back. David does draw a land. It's a temple, but yeah, it's close enough.
Yeah, that's fine too. You know, he doesn't even have to rev this turn necessarily if Bernardo doesn't do anything that productive.
Bernardo going to draw a card. It's a swamp. He will play Underworld Connections now. There's a Revelation for 2.
Yeah, with this Underworld Connection now, David's under the gun to find a Detention Sphere or Pithing Needle pretty fast.
Yeah. Now there's 3 cards now. Let's see. He's got Azorius Charm, Supreme Verdict, another Revelation. So he can chain Revelations, even though, you know, a Revelation for 2 and a Revelation for 3 isn't all that exciting. But again, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
I can also see an argument here for just cycling Azorius Charm right now to try to find a land, or revving in your main phase to try to find a land.
I kind of like the Azorius Charm play here because if you find, you are very happy if you, of course, find a way to answer Underworld Connections this turn. You're also happy if you find a 7th land.
Yeah.
Because then that sets you up for Revelations for 4 or potentially 5 even.
There's Thoughtseize.
I think this warrants a Revelation.
Yeah, you got a rev. Vo going to go up to 23. Negates, Temple, Azorius Charm Verdict. Not a lot of great cards there.
And you can see, even though for as odd of a line that Bernardo has taken in this game, how much better the post-board games look when you have Duress and Thoughtseize alongside each other, Erebos and Underworld Connections alongside each other. It's just, you have a very solid game plan. Bernardo seems like he's evaluating these Supreme Verdicts very high in these games, which is interesting to me because he doesn't really have a particularly good creature he's trying to open the door for.
Yeah.
The plan is, you know, wear down all of David's defenses and then win with whatever. Yeah. It can be Lifebane Zombie or Pack Rat or Desecration Demon. It doesn't really matter all that much which creature it is. Even Mutavaults get the job done. It's more about running him out of resources.
Aetherling, the draw here. Obviously hoping.
This Aetherling has the potential to steal this game, too.
Oh, yeah. It can take care of this game very, very, very quickly. Pass the turn back to Bernardo. He'll take a draw. Attack here for 3 is where we'll start. A few technical difficulties on our end here, guys. We will have our overlay with the life totals and everything up for you guys in just a moment, along with updated life totals, as Bernardo's going to activate Underworld Connections. And now play another copy of Lifebane Zombie, to which he will see an Aetherling. He can't take it, of course, but he will see one.
Alongside Negate and Azorius Charm and a Temple. But this is I mean, David's got his window.
I mean, window's bigger now. He just drew a Holophon he can play untapped.
Yeah. An untapped land here is great as it allows him to an additional blue mana to protect Aetherling. Also gives him access to Gate if he wants it.
So yeah, here's 6 mana. There's Aetherling. He's gonna play that untapped. Take 2, pass the turn back.
There's still a reasonable chance that he just gets... There's still a reasonable chance here that David just gets beaten to death by Lifebane Zombies.
Yeah, I mean, David is at 18 right now.
Yeah.
And Bernardo's at 13, so this Aetherling could do it in 2 hits, which is certainly key. Because don't forget, David obviously gained that life off of those Revelations. Mm-hmm. And with Bernardo with 13 Underworld Connections in play and no Grey Merchants yet, it's going to happen.
And each hero's downfall is a fog as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So Bernardo has a lot of tools to race here.
All right, here comes an attack for 6. David's going to go down to 12. Underworld Connections is going to knock Bernardo down to 12. So we have a tie game, I'll put in quotes. There's a swamp. And yeah, as you mentioned, the big deal here is that Hero's Downfall actually plays the role of fog, as there's underworld connections. Probably safe to counter that, right? Like, it's a little risky.
Unless he wants to just save the negate for something else. He might just say, you know what, that I need to save this over a Hero's Downfall or removal spell. He is going to negate it, which I also think is fine, but there's an argument for just saying I need to save this negate for something else.
Yeah. Just a couple of lands here. Temple. Yeah, I mean, given the situation that we're racing, and Hero's Downfall is going to play the role of fog, you know, you need a negate for that to be able to ensure that you actually kill them on the appropriate turn. Because of course you can't apply Life Pain Zombies, and now I think David is forced into a pretty poor situation because he's at 12. He can take 2 hits. You know, it's a 2-turn clock as it stands. So things get a touch awkward now. The other thing too is that if Mutavault came rumbling in, for David, yeah, it would have been an attack for 10. With Bernardo at 12, he would put him down to 2, and then it would change the game a little bit.
You have 2 lethal attackers
yeah.
next turn, so just a single Hero's Downfall doesn't get you out of this.
Either way, Bernardo on the left, he's at 4.
We know David just with lands in hand.
But Bernardo does not know that, as he's going to go down to 3 via connections. Finds a swamp. Going to attack for 6. Put David down to 6. And will he go for Grey Merchant?
It just drops the Grey Merchant on the table, and that's it.
Yep.
No counterspell. We're going to be going on to a 3rd game.
Yep.
As predicted, game 1 looked pretty solid for Esper. Post board, Mono Black picks up a pretty big edge. Just the discarding card advantage overload is really challenging.
Yeah, we're going to go to a 3rd and final one here momentarily. So we do appreciate you guys sticking through these technical difficulties. Obviously, our overlay is down right now as far as player names and life totals are concerned. So we're taking an old school approach.
Yeah.
I'll be keeping track by hand.
Manual style.
Yes, like I'm actually playing a game of Magic. Okay. So we're going to bring it back to the booth here for you guys really briefly. We're going to update you guys exactly with what is going on. What we're going to do is really quickly is we're going to restart our stream and everything of that nature so that we can have overlays and give you guys the best viewing experience possible at home. Yeah, I could take the guerrilla approach with the old piece of paper and keep you guys updated, but it's our goal to obviously provide you guys with the best visual experience when watching coverage. So in order to do that, we're going to put this game on pause. Those players are going to look at their sideboard, shuffle all that stuff, so you guys don't have to watch that. We've already analyzed the sideboard, so I don't think much is going to change for either player. So a quick restart.